Now, it seems that the Chinese citizens can finally heave a sigh of relief. Slowly but surely, China appears to be progressing towards easing its COVID curbs. A small departure from Beijing's strict zero-COVID policy, something which had frustrated the Chinese citizens for the last several months. It also resulted in a lot of damage to the world's second-largest economy. There are now visible signs that show that the Chinese authorities are easing the restrictions. And these, of course, are the latest images from China's capital, Beijing, where COVID testing booth is being removed. Now, these COVID testing booths were stationed outside of malls and supermarkets, and it was mandatory for people to get tested before they could enter. However, there is heavy police presence on the streets of Beijing, and the authorities are keeping a very close watch for any protests. The long queues for COVID-19 tests were in fact seen in Beijing. The capital has removed the requirement for a COVID negative test result as a precondition to enter in a place such as a supermarket, though many other avenues, including offices, still have this requirement.
The line went from one end of the street to the other. We walked for 7 or 8 minutes to get through the line. If you ride a bike, it takes 2 minutes to reach the end. You couldn't even see the end of the line. It was so crowded.
Support the relaxation of policy, but individuals also need to take good protection. My whole family has received booster shots. I believe the vaccine can protect us.
The similar scenes were also witnessed in other Chinese cities like in Shanghai and also in Guangzhou in the Guangdong province, where barricades were removed and there was some semblance of normalcy that was seen returning back to the streets. The relaxation of testing requirement, of course, comes as the number of infections that are being reported in a 24-hour cycle are reaching record highs inside of China. The Chinese government has reported about 33,000 cases of infections in just the last 24 hours. And yet there is simmering anger. Now, these images from Wuhan, which surfaced on Saturday, shows the protesters pushing through a barrier to try and gain access into a facility that had been sealed off by the authorities. Now, remember, Wuhan, of course, is the city which is widely recognized as the place where the coronavirus infections were reported for the very first time. The relaxation of the COVID curbs, which were dubbed as draconian by the Western world, was welcomed by the World Health Organization.
It's really important that governments listen to their people when the people are in pain, and that we really want to see that adjustment happen and accelerate, but recognise that each country has to deal with an infectious disease based on their risk assessment, based on the tools they have at their disposal.
So as the rest of the world has learned to live with the virus, China remains the only major nation still sticking firmly to a zero-COVID strategy, which aims to isolate every infected person. The policy, which has been in place since the pandemic started, led to snap lockdowns and mass testing across the country. But now, after protests which are very rare in China, the curbs have been eased, at least marginally. But there are also apprehensions that with the restrictions having been eased, the cases could go up, and with fears as to how Xi Jinping would then react. The question, of course, is, will China go back to imposing snap lockdowns while the rest of the world has now moved away from this policy of lockdowns and has learned largely to live with the virus? WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.